Excellent. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our bi-weekly webinar. As you know, we hold webinars, free trainings almost every second week, some in governance, some in leadership. Everything is really to help you get the most out of your people and the most out of your organization. And today it's a topic that's really close to my heart, because in this webinar, we're talking about triggers to change, and when change management really becomes a tool for leaders to get people involved in bringing the organization into a better state. And I think that's the word innovation always comes in here when we talk about change management. And I think it's a key component to making sure that we're not burning people out, and that we are also, as a leader, leading change towards a better state of the organization without burning employees out, for sure, but also without being exhausted as a leader, as a manager. So let's just dig in. This is our 143rd webinar, and I think things are going really well. If ever you have ideas that you want to share on topics and things we should address in these sessions, just let us know. Today, we're really going to talk about not as much about innovation, but how innovation and the changes it brings to an organization can sometimes cause disruption. Even though innovation is a word that's often used to motivate people, it can also be scary for some. And I think we're going to talk about it on the continuum of an active organization. And I think it's going to help just position innovation as a tool, not necessarily as a continuous state to be in that can often burn people out, and just as leaders become exhausting also in the always striving, never arriving state that we can be in when we're always pounding on the innovation hammer. The second one is it's essential for leader managers to foster sustainable and preventative innovation. And that often comes when especially in nonprofit sector, it often comes in, do we have a reasonable assurance that things are going well in the organization? And if they are, then fine, we maximize performance, but also we need to remember that sometimes we just need to go into innovation so we can improve things. But sometimes it's not even innovation. Sometimes it's just, contacting a colleague and finding a best practice that we can use to get things moving on things that absolutely need to change in our organization. And it's also, we want it to be useful for leaders looking to introduce change without disrupting the organization. And I think the links that we're going to be doing today with mission, vision, values, and stakeholder satisfaction is going to be a key component for when you have a desire to bring change in your organization. It's always framed into a cohesive alignment with where the organization is going and what its mandate is. So we're going to talk about leadership expectations. We're going to talk about the organizational activity continuum, consistency check also, and the impact of leadership on change management. So this is something that Micheline and Melanie developed in the past year, and I think it's continuing to entice people in reflecting on what's expected of you as a manager, as a leader. And we're being pulled in all sorts of directions, and everyone wants to be a leader, but in the end, it's quite it can be intense, because we are being pulled not only from the top by board members and executives that are expecting you to contribute to the implementation of the mission, to realize the vision that was adopted by the board and by management, to practice organizational values and be a model, to also mobilize and engage staff, act responsibly, and meet the objectives of the organization. And we are being pulled, or it is pressure that is coming down towards us as a manager leader. But we also need to consider what's the pressure that's coming from employees and what they're expecting from us. And as we're having that conversation, we need to really think of these expectations in the today when we want to entice change in the organization. So they are expecting you, employees are expecting from you to establish the direction and key priorities, to clarify expectations on roles and responsibilities and operations, to hold useful and engaging meetings, to ensure their professional success as well, just to be accompanying them and succeeding in their work, to foster collaboration amongst individuals and teams, to hold unperforming employees accountable, to make the best decisions for the organization or the department, and to regularly communicate important matters. And that's just a big task right there. So when we're going to talk about change management, leadership, and the fact that we can't disconnect management from leadership, because all of the work that's expected from employees, almost 80% of it comes from your role as a manager, not as much as a leader. So all of these key expectations from employees will probably take 80% of your time. And as we're pulling on these strings consistently daily, we need to really, modulate how are we going to survive this leadership role that we have when it comes to change management. So let's not forget also the pressures we're getting from other managers and colleagues around the table that are hopefully, you're expecting this from them, but they're expecting that from you to act as an ideal colleague or an ideal team player around the management table, to collaborate on systemic initiatives, to not act selfishly, to be available for them as well, to meet your own objectives. So do your fair share as a manager on a management team, and to take responsibility when needed if there are any results that aren't as good as we expected. And then in all of this, there's you and the pressure you put on yourself to succeed in your work, to maintain work-life balance, to have a sense of competency, and to have confidence in yourself as well, to give your 100% and meet expectations from others and take care of your mental and physical health. And that's why I always say it's tough being a manager and a leader. And I think we need to really think of the notion of careful what you wish for. You want that role, you need to be able to balance all of this out. So we need to be really careful when we talk about change management, we talk about innovation. We need to really make sure that it fits in there in that equation, so we're not burning out as managers and leaders, and we're not burning our people out that are responsible for delivering on all of our great ideas and all of the initiatives that we're trying to change. So I invented this little continuum. It's kind of tacky, but I just want to share it with you. And I think that we get a lot of validation through these two words that we use often. And the two words are are often used to just boost people up. We're very reactive. We're very strong at reacting. And I think that's great when it's time. Or we're very proactive in our organization. And we tend to forget that this is a continuum. And there's a word that we tend to forget, and it's being active. And I think that there's a consideration here when it comes to expectations from above and also expectations from employees, that we need to bring as much of our activities into the active column here. So when we are being active, we're delivering quality services. We are meeting standards of excellence. Our performance measures are monitored, and also our performance results are monitored. Client satisfaction is monitored. Coaching culture for staff, sustainable collaboration and continuous improvement cultures are maintained. And this should be taking 80% of our time, but also 80% of our energy. So we need to remember that when we are in a reactive mode constantly, because we don't have the proper procedures or we're not managing change, while considering everything else that's going on in the organization, then we're stuck living in either a reactive or a proactive mode when we should be spending 80% of our time in this section here. So, of course, we're going to be reactive when it comes to emergencies and accidents in the workplace or something that happens that's unforeseen, but also to jump on opportunities and trends when they're appropriate, especially if our satisfaction levels are low with stakeholders. We're also going to move to proactive mode and say, what would it take for us to bring our activities into the activities column here by better planning, by risk management, by doing some research and development, by program evaluation, by practicing change management approaches that contribute to making sure that our results, our performance is in a continuous improvement trend. So I just wanted to bring this to you because even though some organizations or some sectors seem to feel that they need to live in reactive and proactive mode, we tend to forget that it does have an impact on stress levels in the organization. And living all of this stress here can be detrimental to the buy-in you're going to get from employees when you want to continuously change things, or living in this section here, always reacting, never putting in permanent solutions to things, and so on and so forth. So this is my little diagram. I hope it's useful for you. You might want to bring it to your favorite tattoo artist. Maybe it could be useful for you on a poster as well, so you can grab a screen capture there, or we're going to also send you the PDF in the follow-up email. So why am I bringing this to you is because when we do consider change, when we talk about innovation and change management, we can't just, have a general definition of the word change. When we talk about change in an organization, we're talking about change that is a necessary improvement to a problematic issue or a problematic situation. Essentially, it's a significant issue that justifies efforts, mobilizing resources and people to address the issue. So when we're trying to get buy-in from people on things that we want to change, we need to be able to create the leverage. And we create the leverage with the necessity of the change because we're already pretty busy. Now you want us to do this. So why is this important? And this is where you can answer those questions because you're actually underlining the problematic situation. It's justifiable because we have issue. This priority may even require suspending other initiatives to focus on the change. So the goal here is leaving your department or organization in a better state than when you arrived or when this situation arose. And it's not about innovating just for the sake of innovation. It's about, I am bringing this change because there's a situation that requires it. And when we talk about change management and this whole sector of leadership, we're really talking about creating a clear vision, aligning people and resources, and then going to execution. And we'll talk about those elements in a few minutes. So change management is actually a practice. It is the work managers must do to improve the implementation of the mission or the achievement of the organization's vision or to fix a problem that's actually going on. So essentially, it's the ability for you as a leader to create a clear and engaging vision of that change, align resources, which includes people and other resources, and then to secure buy-in. So ultimately, it's to lead change initiatives with business and emotional intelligence to ensure success. So when we're talking about creating a vision, we're creating a vision that's inspiring, yes, but it's also justifiable. It's the business part of it that needs to be in that equation. Then it brings you to really bringing people in. Let me continue here. I'm just looking at the chat. We're recording, Stephanie, so you'll have access to it, no problem. So there's a few key principles to remember when we talk about change management. So sustainable change requires synergy between business intelligence and emotional intelligence. So you need to be able to bring the numbers that justify mobilizing these people. That's the business part of it. Then it's to be sensitive to what you're asking and imposing. What are you changing? How is that going to change people's lives in their day-to-day? How is that going to move them from the active part of their day to proactive or reactive, and then higher stress levels, so they can understand that you're not asking them to move there, they're just visiting there temporarily, so we can have a better active mode in the organization. Change management also combines technical skills and human dynamics. So we need to be able, as leaders and managers, to understand not just the what, but also the how. And these are two components that will bring people on board, especially if you've done the DISC or any Myers-Briggs or any personality types. You'll know that some people need to know the what, but they also need to know the how. They need to know the who, but they also need to know the why. And all of these components to change management just brings people together, because we meet their needs in these four very important quadrants of information that brings them to buy in. The process applies mainly to major changes. So when you're in change management, you're not just choosing to, use a brighter paper in the printer. We're actually talking about real, significant, meaningful organizational change. So it applies to something that has a scope that fits into the mission or the vision, or that will significantly improve results of the organization. Number 4, key component here: without excellent standards, everything seems important to improve. So we need to be able to, as leaders and managers, to create our dashboard, our scorecard, for all of employees to know that we're meeting expectations. And we tend to think that a scorecard or a dashboard is only for management, but we need to remember the impact of a scoreboard in a hockey game or a soccer game, and expect players, the ones that actually get things done, to be motivated to drive without knowing how much time's left, what the score is, what the gap is between what they need to get done before the time that's there, that's left, is really not serving employees that will be following through on the change that you're bringing. So without standards of excellence, and I'm going to just use satisfaction levels as an example, if you don't have a standard that says, well, our satisfaction levels for our activities and our services and our products will be, let's say, 85%, then once you're there at 85%, you can't make that more important than something that's below standards in another sector. Time to delivery, for example. So we need to be able to ensure that we have excellent standards for everything in our organization. So once we have attained that standard, it can help us free up some time to address issues in the organization. And also, change isn't managed in the same way as daily operations, but it needs to be managed daily. And that's just an expression that Micheline on our team, she's our change management specialist. She really digs in here saying, you can't just use change management as a crock pot. You can't just set it and forget it. If you're going to change something that's meaningful in the organization, it needs to be on your radar on a day-to-day basis, not just once every quarter or once every monthly meeting or once in a while when you have time. If it's really important, it'll be part of your day-to-day life as a manager and as a leader. So how do we make change meaningful, especially for the people that are really close to us, like employees and colleagues and on your management team, or even board members and executives that are looking to you to making sure that the organization performs in all of its aspects. So the first thing is that we need to consider what the trigger is. So it's usually a significant issue or new challenges, or new challenge that arises. For example, if we're doing a new strategic framework, or we've just completed our previous strategic vision, and now our mission scope has changed, and we might change the mission in our articles of incorporation and all of this stuff. Well, if that's been adopted, then we're going to have to bring this to market through our team that makes things happen. So if there's a new mission, mission is important. Mission is the one and only, it's the most important priority. That's why it's mission, vision, values. It's never vision, mission, values. Mission is first, is what you do day to day. It's the business you're in. If that changes, it should trigger change management processes. If there's a new strategic vision, whether it's for your department or your organization, if there's a new strategic vision or thematic goal that was adopted, it will usually trigger a change management process. If there's a failure in the effective delivery of services or programs, it will usually trigger a change management process. So as you can see here, we're trying to create some leverage on the why we will be changing things. So it doesn't seem like it's on a whim. It can't be on the manager's or the leader's whim. It's got to be dug into or anchored into mission, vision, values, services. If there's a decline in client stakeholder satisfaction, it will usually or should trigger an evaluation, change management process. A newly identified need from clients and stakeholders, that might trigger a change management process. Or if the market is shifting towards a reality that we are unprepared for, whether it's a pandemic or basic just shift in the market, it might trigger a change management process. So as you can see, this is all within our data of maintaining reasonable assurance that things are going well. And when they're not going well, we should be able to justify starting a change management process. So let's start with the most important. So let's say you identify a change in your organization that absolutely needs to happen right now. And you might want to take this note and write this down. If you were to choose one major change that needs to happen in your organization, start moving forward right now, or maybe it's been due for a while, what would that change be? So it might be a software, it might be just canceling an event that's just not working for clients anymore. What needs to change in your organization? And your first compliance test will be, does it fit in my mission, vision, values? Does it fit in the way we are structured in doing business? So will this change enhance services, programs, program implementation for greater excellence? And if so, good, there's one. If it also, or it might also fit in your vision, your strategic vision, Does this change that I identified also fit in my strategic vision? Does it contribute to achieving the organization's vision or thematic goal if it's a department? Does this change fit in that decision that was taken by the board of directors or the management team? And also, does it fit in our corporate values? Does it remain true to who we are? To what distinguishes us on our market, to the behaviors we want to promote for stakeholders to engage with us more. And sometimes it will fit in all three of those check boxes. Sometimes it's just one. I would say that these are the most important, right? First thing, mission, vision, values. Second thing is satisfaction, needs, and trends. So I always tend to say if I had anything tattooed on my arm here, it would be mission, vision, values on one arm. And on the other arm, I would have, satisfaction, needs, and trends for our clients, our main stakeholder, the beneficiary of our products and services, our mission, the ones we want to have the most impact on. Are they satisfied with what we're doing? Are their needs met systematically? And are we ahead of the game? Are we ready for anything? And those two checklists, so the first one being mission, vision, values, then satisfaction, needs, and trends. If we have that as a framework for every decision we make, there'll be less criticism when it comes to alignment. Oh, this doesn't make sense. No, it makes sense because I can fit it in these 6 boxes: mission, vision, values, satisfaction, needs, and trends. By being able to create that meaningfulness of the change that you want to trigger, that you want to implement, well, satisfaction levels are low. This is why we need to change. Or there's a new need on the market. The clients are saying they need this service from us. It fits within our mission. Let's just do it. Let's implement it. What do you say? Are you in? This is the vision. Let's plan it out, then go through towards execution. Or there might be trends on the market. Things are changing. I think AI is changing tons of things in so many different areas. The trend right now is, am I ready for this? What do I need to change to make sure that I'm ahead of the curve, or at least not lagging behind of the trends that are there? Makes sense? So mission, vision, values, satisfaction, needs, and trends are the framework of our compliance test. And then we're going to add one last thing. I call it the signature approach of the organization or the department. Does this change fit in improving or turning essential expectations into actionable processes? Are the way we do things improved or good enough to meet expectations? And I call it operationalizing things, standardizing approaches, and automating when we can. And this sort of closes up our sandbox, if we will, if I can say it this way. If my decisions fit within mission, vision, values, satisfaction, needs, and trends, and improving processes to make things better, it's almost impossible to seem as if we're disaligned or it's on a whim. So if you're assessing processes, if you're making sure things are going well, and in this one, it's very, very important to say, if I'm working in this organization and I take a vacation and I come back 2 weeks later, can someone else do my job in my stead? And if no one can do the job in my place, that means this part needs to change. The way we do things, so people can actually take real vacations, so people can actually be replaced easily. Someone new comes in because it's all operationalized, standardized, and automated, then people can actually come in and have a quick transition into succeeding in their role. So when we talk about bringing all of this together, we're saying, how many of these boxes would I check off in the change you said earlier? This absolutely needs to change. Will it make my mission better? Will it help me realize my vision? Will it line up with my values? Will it improve client satisfaction? Does it meet a new need? Am I ahead of a trend? Is it making my processes better? So when you bring these changes, whether it's to the board or to employees, it's just going to be an easier sell, because if all of these components are clear, and I'm talking about a clear mission, clear vision, clear values, standards for satisfaction, a good understanding of what the needs of our market is, not just something we're guessing on a whim or, through one article I read this morning when I woke up, but we are fully aware of our market needs and trends and satisfaction levels, not only in our organization, but also maybe at the competitors' service levels. I will be able to make a more strategic decision on the changes that we need to bring. And to me, operational readiness is through making sure all of our processes are really, really outperforming, so we can get measurable and predictable results. But when we want to talk about strategic thinking, it's because we master these three components here. I master satisfaction levels everywhere on my market. I completely understand the needs of my beneficiaries or clients, and I know my market enough to know where the market is going. And whether we're in the community sector or the private sector or the public sector, if we have a good understanding of these three components, then we can think strategically of what absolutely needs to change to be able to meet this. Does that make sense? Is there any questions? If there's any questions, don't hesitate to put them in the chat. I'll be more than happy to answer questions. So this is my read on things these days. If I'm meeting expectations from the stakeholders, internal stakeholders in my organization, as a manager leader, that will take almost 80% of my time. And that needs to be considered in the management processes, in everything I need to do every day, coaching employees, assessing their performance, feeding the dashboard, making sure that all of our programs are aligned on the mission, making sure that our strategic initiatives are helping us make the vision possible. All of these components need to be managed, and they're not as much linked to leadership as management. So when I talk about management, it's the business part of your work. I think that takes 80% of your time. The 20% is the leadership piece. And leadership piece for me is change management equals leadership because it involves people. It's creating something that's clear vision. So it needs to start with a clear vision. It's the ability to clearly articulate the organization's direction in the near future. And when we're talking about change management, it's the first step. Where do you want to bring this change? Essentially, it means identifying the desired improvement or change that you would like to implement. It needs to come from you with all of your listening structures out there. You know the trends, the satisfaction levels of all stakeholders, not just clients, employees as well, executives, manager, board of directors, partners. You understand your market so well that you are able to bring this together. That's the careful what you wish for piece. You're a leader, you need to create that vision. Of course, you'll do it with others, but the expectation is on you. So ultimately, a vision is an imagined condition, improved condition, a future state. It's not a mission, it's a vision, it's a change. So you should be able to put a date to it. You should maybe be able to create the difference between now and the envisioned state. So in which the organization or team creates something of significant value, serve clients exceptionally, or reinvent how it operates because things are just not working. Once you've created that vision, there's sort of a transition there, and that's when we go towards alignment and buy-in. So tips here is avoid choosing a solution too quickly. Stay open and curious about all possibilities when you're creating a vision. Ignore the details for now. Focus on the big picture. What will it look like? All of our systems are automated when it comes to donations in our organization. Why? Those are details. Your vision is, I want to be fully automated when it comes to donations because we want to hit 25% of our revenues in donations. Avoid moving forward too fast and test the implications first. And we're going to fall into the buy-in. And I'm laughing now because we tend to tell clients what I tend to do. You need to be careful not to jump from vision to execution. There needs to be a buy-in and alignment piece between the two. So the change management process is 3 steps: vision, alignment, execution. Alignment equals buy-in, allocating resources, planning, all of this stuff that I tend to jump because I just want to get into the action. But as a manager and as a leader, there's expectations from different people to plan this out, to make sure everyone's clear, to clarify expectations, and to make sure that before we move on this, things are clear for everyone. So the second part is building alignment and allocating resources. So as a leader, it's your ability to rally people around that vision and allocate the necessary resources to ensure success. And necessary resources, sometimes for some people, it just means time. We need to be able to pull an employee aside and say, this is important. It's okay if you leave that part of your job aside for a while because this is important. That's also allocating resources. It's not just throwing money at it, but it's also making sure that there's time and space for employees to actually not only buy in, but start contributing as soon as the execution phase is started. Essentially, the building alignment, it means articulating change and listening to reactions. So when I say articulating it, it's making it more concrete. It's moving from the idea and the vision statement in 2-3 lines into, some milestones and planning and having an end date and getting some how and some why into place, not just the what. So we're moving from the what to the how, and we're trying to get people aligned. So it's articulating change and listening to reactions for maximum buy-in. And remember, sometimes people just need to share what they're feeling, and that's just enough for them. And I've been through this process before with 2 organizations that were merging together. After 6 months, there seemed to be a lot of rowdiness on the teams that just didn't want things to move forward. And the 2 leaders that were consolidating those 2 nonprofit structures were stuck in that feedback loop that was always negative, and it was slowing the process down. And we ended up just facilitating 1 session where all of the employees of both teams were in the room, and all we asked them, the leaders, to do is to explain the process of consolidating those 2 nonprofit structures. So they explained the process. It took about half an hour. Then we went around the room with a quick facilitation tool where we asked employees to share to firstly ask any clarity questions that they might have, and then to share what preoccupies them and what reassures them in what was presented. And that just freed up all of the negative energy around the room, and everyone felt listened. And they were able to finish the implementation in 3 months when they thought it was going to take an extra year because of all of the negative energy around that consolidation of structures. So Listening here is a key component. And then ultimately, it's about having a clear and unified understanding of the vision, along with the resources and to implement things effectively. So not only do you have a vision, which is something I tend to be really good at, but I'm not really good at the planning. So from my vision to the how, that's where things fall apart for me. And I need to really focus on the alignment and allocation of resources so the people that are going to make that happen know exactly what they're getting in. And as you know, not only for yourself, but I'm sure you've seen it with employees, once they get it, once you've answered the how, the who, the what, the when, and all the information, did I say the why? The why, it helps everyone just to buy in because they just have more information. And this is what the word transparency comes from. If we can answer those 5 questions more articulately as leaders, change management will be much easier. And we tend to get stuck in the what, which is the vision, and we tend to forget that there's 4 more questions that we need to be able to answer articulately for employees to buy in. So let's not forget those questions and help them by answering them for ourselves, we'll be able to communicate them. So don't improvise your messages. Make sure they're structured. And those 5 questions, you know them, right? They're the what, which is the vision, the who will be involved, the how they'll be involved, the why they'll be involved, and the whens. I'm going to put it with an S there. All of the timeline of where you're going with this. So not only does the vision needs a timeline, but also everything else, those steps, those milestones needs to be there. Also, be careful. This is a trap for me. I don't know how you are. I tend to, when I have a vision of something, I tend to want to sell it. And it's really important to shift from selling because you already have all of the, the compliance tests done. You know it fits in your mission, in your vision, in your values, that it's going to help with satisfaction and needs and trends. It's going to make the organization just function better. You've already have that. So you don't need to sell it because you're just able to explain it. So it's really important to move from selling to listening and to understand. So when you listen to objections that people may have, it will help you improve your structured messages for the future. So it means that when you structure your messages for people to buy in and create alignment, as you listen, they will adapt. So you can answer to those objections and people can overcome them and be more involved in that change. So it's really important to the third one here, this one comes from Melanie, that will always say you need to make sure that you are open about the challenges when it comes to change management. You can't just keep saying it's going to be easy, you'll see. Oh, it's going to be easy, you'll see. You have to be realistically or just realistic with how things are going to be. And we know change is hard. We know change is hard for some, harder for some, easier for others. But in the end, it still equates to change is difficult because when we're comfortable with something, it's really hard to, discipline ourselves in doing things differently. So don't just highlight the benefits of the change, but also show them that you're realistically looking at things, knowing that sometimes it might be hard and to stick with you as you're changing this stuff. So the last part is implementation. It's execution. You could write execution here, it would be perfect. So it's vision, then alignment, then execution. So in execution as a leader, that's where your presence is really, really important in the change management piece. So that's why I'm going to come back to my 80-20 rule here. If you're doing 80% management, 20% leadership, which is what I think the equation should be, your 20% leadership is not creating change management processes every week, is choosing 1 or 2 and sustaining the effort throughout, all the way to the end, all the way to the follow through. So you're present in the implementation of that change. So you're participating uh, through supporting people, responsible throughout implementation, ensuring continuous presence in the field. So you are there, you're listening, you're conscious of what's going on, you address concerns and unexpected issues, you constantly remind people of the vision, you make sure that their key messages are shared systematically, you don't just set it and forget it. You remind purpose and the impact of that change over time. You recognize those actively involved in change. So you keep motivating, but you keep recognizing. You also need and will need to supervise and support the reluctant individuals to help them meet expectations. It can't just be, I'll work with the people who want to work with me. No, that's the easy part. The hard part is getting the people that are reluctant, that are that slow things down, to stay up to speed. And this will take your management skills here. Be clear, some leadership skills, but management skills, crucial conversations, clarity on expectations, assessment of performance, and all of the work that needs to be done to make sure people are clear on what's expected of them so you can hold them to account. Then monitor and share results on the progress with relevant stakeholders, especially your team. They need to be aware that you're moving along. You can't just set it and forget it, and then once it's cooked and ready to go or all done, you remind them that they did a good job. That's certainly going to take twice or three times as long. You need to be able to share results and progress so they know what the end in mind is. So and that we are attaining it. So it's the scoreboard. It's the hockey player's scoreboard that's just there, that helping them win the game. And everyone wants to win the game, not just leaders and managers, but employees want and need to know that they're contributing to their success of the organization and to the initiatives that their manager leader is bringing forward as being a priority. And obviously celebrate successes on milestones, but also on personal or professional progress by individuals. So progress, successes, and the achievement of the vision needs to be celebrated, because it creates that buy-in and that confirmation that it was important enough to put all of these resources and time for you to be able to recognize it with the team. Does that make sense? So don't disappear. Stay present and interested in what people are experiencing. Be patient. Repeat, remind, reassure, solve problems. Encourage people is a great way to hold people accountable, and avoid artificial harmony by addressing issues when they arise, while meeting with people, addressing underperformance, making sure the issues are resolved as quickly as possible so you get to the envisioned end result or change as quickly as possible. Oh, there's a translation issue here. Yeah, I was wondering if there's any questions in the chat. If you'd like to share any questions, you can use the Q&A as well. But that's the content for today. So when it comes to change management, if there's anything I'd like for you to sort of to remember, is this part here, so that you can make sure that you're bringing the proactive change management piece as soon as possible into the active piece of your organization, so you can live in a lower stress environment and bring people to just contribute to the 80% of what's needed for the organization to succeed. So our next webinars, as usual, every 2 weeks. Pardon for the French part here, but superhero all the time. It's exhausting. How to create balance between the management role and the leadership role. We'll dig into to that topic on March 25th at 11. And also the essential practices for managers in a unionized environment. It might not be useful. It might be useful for you, but if it's not, if you can share it with others, we would love that. And just to close up today. If you can sum up this session in one word in the chat, I would truly appreciate it. I want to thank you. We did it within an hour today, as promised. We're trying to do them quicker so you can get back to your things and get this little capsule d'apprentissage, this learning bite as you go through your week. I hope this was useful, and we'll see you next time.